Stephen and Catt Dees. They are the Celebrate Recovery pastors at Rio Revolution Church. Will you give it up for them?
Hey guys, while my husband's grabbing that table there, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Catt Dees, and I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I celebrate recovery from physical, emotional, and sexual abuse.
Yes, and my name is Stephen Dees. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ, and I celebrate recovery from meth addiction and sex addiction.
All right, you're going to go ahead and kick us off, baby.
Well, I thought you were kicking. Oh, no, I am kicking us off, aren't I? Okay. So listen, we've done this a couple times, and I promise you, me and my wife can keep you here for a long time. We can stay here till Waffle House closes, but I mean, we got long-winded. But just real quick, testimonies are important. But what's more important is what you get out of the testimony. It's not about where I've been and the darkness that I lived in. It's about where God brought me from and who I am today. And I want to share with you guys at the end something to take with you to be able to maybe help you get to that next level. That's what it's about. Amen? I've been clean since February 23rd of 2013. God cleansed me the last time I went to jail, the last time I went to prison was the last time I touched drugs, alcohol, nicotine, or looked at pornography. That's a God-given testimony. Amen. And so, born in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1969, I was born into a dysfunctional family. Drugs and alcohol were already prevalent. Violence was already prevalent. My earliest memories are arguments from my mother and my father. Dad stepped out the picture before I can even really had a relationship with him at all, man. Before I could even walk, I don't really remember him being in. Other than the fight that I remember him and my mom had right before the house got on fire. And my mom, she tried to raise us 3 kids on her own, but at 5 years old, she just had enough and couldn't do it anymore. And I tell this part of the testimony because it's very important about where we went to later. So it was on we had an apartment building, and my mom had we all slept in the same bedroom. She slept in the middle of the floor with the box spring and mattress. Me and my sister slept on bunk beds. And I heard a bag rattle, and my mom was breathing erratically. So I got off the bed to check on her. Done this 2 or 3 times. The last time she went to check on her, she was unresponsive. I went out and got my grandfather. She had OD'd, so they had called the ambulance. They took my sisters out of the room, and I sat on the bottom of this bunk bed, and I watched them work on my mom as they pumped the air into her lungs and did CPR on her. They eventually wheeled her off. At 5 years old, I was confused and numb. Didn't really know what to think about what just happened. I couldn't pinpoint feelings. I know that anger started becoming one of my best friends. My mom did live. She came back to the house 3 days later. She promised us kids it would never happen again, and we're all happy to see her, and everything's turned right side up. Well, that night, she took off again. She left by the window this time. And woke up, and I could hear my sisters in the living room, and I just knew in my heart, because the window was open, it was cold outside, and she was gone. And I didn't see her for the next 7 years. Well, me and my sister was tossed around into some different homes, all the way from California to some grandparents that lived out there. Some very bad things happened to us sexually there. They took us from there, moved us back to Ohio, went into a foster home. My sister got along with the foster mom. I couldn't do it. I was walking through the grocery store one day, and I thought I seen my mom, and I just ran after this woman. And the woman turned around and with my mom, and I just started bawling. And this foster mom looked at me and said, "You little ungrateful bastard," and she took me out to the van and whooped me. And we just didn't get along. I can tell you story after story. My first time running away was my foster mother, or my foster sister-in-law, I guess you'd call her, was my first grade teacher. And I lied about passing the math test because I knew I'd get in trouble. And I was sitting at the table doing some other homework, and I heard the phone call come in. You know, back in the day, you had the long cords and the rotary phones. You know, I'm an older guy. She come around that corner and just started hitting me on top of the head with a broomstick. And that was the first time I ever ran away. I pushed her down, and I ran away. I was a young kid, and I made it all the way to the school, believe it or not. But that became repetitious in my life. When things got hard, when things got difficult, I just ran away. It was easy for me to do that. Dad stepped into the picture. Very violent man, another kind of different level of evil when we moved down to Florida. And so one morning, I stole some of his weed, went to school, and got busted. On the way home, I could see 2 cop cars sitting at the house, and I was like, "Oh, Lord," and I jumped out the back of the bus and ran away. That night, it was cold outside, so I was living in Florida, and I jumped in this car in the front seat, found me some crackers, and I curled up in a ball and went to sleep. When I woke up, there was a gun in my face. I'd actually fell asleep in a police officer's off-duty police car. And he had all his friends come over. And we had a flashing light party. But I was glad that happened because I shared in my heart I didn't want to go back home. And then my next memory was they put me on a plane. I came back to Ohio. Now, I left my sisters in a very bad situation, which really weighs on my heart. I'm not going to tell their testimony, but what they went through, nobody should ever have to go through. So, all right, I came back to Ohio. I went to an orphanage. At this orphanage it's called St. Joe's Orphanage in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was probably the safest place I've ever been. Wasn't nobody sexually doing anything to me. Wasn't nobody beating me up. Wasn't nobody cussing me. It was the safest place I've ever been. And got fond memories of there. Matter of fact, Cincinnati Bengals, it's right behind LaSalle High School, so Cincinnati Bengals, that's where they practiced in off season. Loved it. Got to be able to go out there and watch those kinds of things. Fond memories. So one day I was at school, and one of the staff members showed up and said that my mom was at the orphanage and she wanted to see me. And in my mind, I couldn't comprehend that until we pulled up into the front of the door. I actually took Catt there years later so she could see this. It's so vivid of pulling up. It's a roundabout driveway. And when you pull up to the front doors, it's a double door. Then there's some couches on the inside. And I could see my mom sitting there, and I knew exactly who she was when I seen her. And I just dropped my books. I ran in there, and I jumped in her lap. Man, it was like when she had OD'd and she'd come home. It was like she was safe. It's okay. Mama's home. Everything's going to be okay. My whole world turned right side up again. We cried, we laughed, we had a good time for a little bit, and she jumped through every hoop that she could jump through to get me back in a short period of time. But they lived in Kentucky, so it took about a year, and this is in Ohio. Well, the man that she brought into our life, he was about 6'4", 240 pounds. He was 104th Airborne. Cool, man. I never had nobody teach me how to throw a ball. I had nobody teach me how to ride a bike. I didn't have a man to teach me how to wipe my butt or go to school and talk to women. I had no kind of role figure in my life at all up to this time. So, man, I kind of looked up to this guy. I thought, man, this is going to be great, man. This guy loves football. He loves boxing. He loves all the things that, teach me how to ride a bike. But, man, when I got into the home, the mask came off. The alcohol and the drugs were very prevalent. And he liked the box. Boxing was his favorite. We watched those. It was on TV back then. Y'all call it on demand now. But back then, you remember when it was? You got to turn the little key to watch the on demand. I know, I'm old. Get it, right? And so we loved boxing. And so he would teach me how to box. The thing was, being young and 12 years old, man, he hit me so hard. There was a couple times I woke up where he'd knock me out. I'd go to school with these really bad headaches for like 3 or 4 days. And I couldn't concentrate, so I'd get in trouble at school. And when he taught me how to play football, he taught me rough how to play football. He didn't teach me. It was a very, when the mask came off, he was very violent. And then he started beating on my mom in front of me. And one night, we was at the mobile home. They had little trailers, a 2-bedroom trailer. And me and my sister, my stepsister, my mom, my stepfather stayed there. And my mom and him got into it really bad, and he swelled her eyeball shut. She was bleeding. She was crying, and he left. And I was glad he was gone. And she started crying, and she looked over at me. She said, Stevie, she called me Stevie. She said, Stevie, please go get him. Tell him I'm sorry. Just tell him to come home. I didn't want to. I wanted to protect her. I wanted to keep him away, and I didn't know how. But I didn't want my mom. She was crying in front of me. So what did I do? I went and got him. I found him at this man's fishing trailer out on the lake, and they were drinking that night. They were drinking Jack Daniels and Budweiser when I walked in, and I sat down at the table, and they passed the bottle around, so I started drinking with them. About 4 or 5 times around the table, I got real bold, and I picked that whiskey bottle up, and I started to gulp it, and he slapped me real hard, pow, right in front of this Mr. Turner. And he said, you don't drink another man's whiskey like that. Well, Mr. Turner got real nervous. He started shaking. He started getting a lot of anxiety, and I could tell he didn't want us there. So we left. The bad part is we had to walk up a long way through the woods to get up to the house. And this man sexually assaulted me in the woods when I was 13 years old. And he hurt me really bad. And sometimes I still carry anger. Sometimes I still carry the hurt. And I got to remember that I made a choice to forgive this man. It's not a feeling. And we'll get there sometime. We'll get there at the end. So during this time, there was a guy in our neighborhood that went to the Navy, and he left a .32 Colt that was a heirloom to his family. He didn't want nobody to steal it, so he left it in our closet. But I can remember playing with that gun. And I can remember in my mind thinking, all I got to do is go into this room, put this to this man's head, and pull the trigger, and my mom will never get hurt again. Mom will never get hurt again. He threatened to kill my mom and my stepsister if I ever told anybody what happened. And guys, I believed him. There was no doubt in my mind that this man was violent enough to do that. But I couldn't find myself strong enough to go in there and pull the trigger. Now, back then, I thought I was weak. And I think God had his hand on me because I probably went down a whole different road then. Yes, sir. So the next day I woke up, one day I woke up, was going to run away. In Dayton, Tennessee, they got what they call the crossroads. And I don't know how I knew this when I was 13 years old. But the crossroads is the railroad tracks that go north and south, east and west. And you can take the railroad tracks west. And my idea was I was getting out of town and I was going to run away. Well, during packing my stuff, I started getting mad and angry, punching holes in the wall and busting out the windows. And I didn't know how to cover my tracks, so I burnt the house down. 8 hours later, the state troopers in Kentucky caught me out in the woods. They caught me on this road. And snow, they tracked me. It was crazy. For 13 years old, it was actually, if you look back on it, was probably pretty cool, but not now. So I went to jail. And in Boone County Detention Center is a jail. It's just for juveniles. It's just like a cell if you go today. It's crazy. And they sentenced me to 3 years to state. During this time of being in the state, I was tossed around to some different places. I landed in a place called Holly Hill Children's Home in northern Kentucky, where they had done everything they could for me, and then they told me they were going to move me back to my mom and my stepdad's house. And I said I couldn't do it. And I took off on the run at 16 years old. I was in West Union, Ohio, Adams County, Ohio for about a year and a half. I was really good at pool. Learned that when I was in juvenile. I was really good at pool. So I can go to the bars. Manchester had a lot of bars. So I can just go in the back. I could play for a few beers, get a little bit of money, whatever I'm doing, kind of hustling. And when I was 18 years old, 2 months after my 18th birthday, well, actually, this started. It was right at my 18th birthday because I got caught about 3 weeks later. I was back there playing pool, and this boy, man, he said something that got my attention. He said, I know where there's some money. And I was like, oh, really? And he started telling me about this story about where there's some money at, and I kind of fell in with him and said, okay, let's go get it. And long story short, I ended up with a 5 1/4, 5 1/4, and a 3.15, which means I was 18 years old, 135 pounds with a 25-year sentence. The prison they sent me to was Mansfield, Ohio, and that's where they filmed Shawshank Redemption. And that was the first start of my bid. That's where I started to become a man. One day I was in cell 6 Southeast, cell 48. They come by and handed me a piece of paper that said my max out date was April 2013. So how do y'all think I lived? Like I was never getting out of prison. Well, I did. I did 6 years, 9 months. There was an angel that got involved, man. His name was Mr. Todd. He came in there one day and he threw my folder on the table. He said, what are you doing, Mr. Dees? You ever want to get out of prison? I was like, what do you mean? And you know my situation. I don't think I'm going to get out. I made headlines in Adams County, Ohio. And he started telling me about this score that they use when you go to parole. And then he started telling me how to get my score down. Nobody ever taught me that the whole time I was there. All these convicts and all these people calling my friends, nobody explained the system to me. And God put this guy in my life. Now, I wasn't a Christian, didn't know anything about Jesus, but this guy told me if I went to NA and A, I said, I ain't got a drug problem. I ain't got an alcohol problem. He says, it doesn't matter. They give you points for going. They don't care. And I was like, okay, take a culinary arts class. Take a college class. I was like, whatever I could do to get my points down, and I ended up kicking out 6 years, 9 months. I kicked out on a 25-year sentence. Thank God for that. So then I kicked off my parole, ended up down here in Tennessee, or not here, but in Tennessee, and got a girl pregnant. We got to hurry up, and we'll talk really fast. All right. So I met a girl, and how many of you guys ever met a girl? That's where it starts, right? Ask Adam. It's all her fault, God, I promise you. It's still the same today, ain't that right? So anyway, I met this girl. She got pregnant, and I thought I was going to change my whole life. I actually went to Calhoun, Georgia, down there to Thrallcart, and went to welding school. And I had an opportunity to go to Cabelco, which is in Calhoun, Georgia, to work there on third shift. And we would go to Kmart, and we would get things out of layaway and put things in layaway. And we already named our girl Karina Marie. And I was going to be a good father. I was going to be everything that the world that I wasn't, right? Well, my little girl was born on March 14th, and she was born just a little bit premature, and we took her home 5 weeks later, she died in our bed. That was the... I've never done hard drugs, okay? And I took up the man's position, and I tried to get her into the cosmetology school, moved her back home, helped her out, but I couldn't cope with life myself. And so I was working a lot of hours trying to cover the pain. But then somebody introduced me to methamphetamine, and it killed every pain I had, physically, spiritually, emotionally, everything. It became my God very quickly, enough that I got so consumed that I became a red phosphorus dope cookie. For the next 15 years, I just kind of ran the roads doing what I wanted to do and raising a lot of Cain. Make a long story short, 2010, I found myself in the Polk County, Florida jail facing 30 years in prison for aggravated assault, aggravated ×2 with a deadly weapon. I've been up for about 14 days, maybe a little longer, and I walked into a situation with a girl that I've been with for 6 years, and 2 people went to the hospital. 14 days later, they caught me for a fugitive from justice, and when I was in there, they charged me with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon ×2. I went to go see my lawyer. She throwed my cases up from when I was 18 years old, and she said, Mr. Dees, you're going to be lucky to get these run concurrent, because you're probably going to be consecutive. That was the night that I went to my cell, and as I was crying in the back of the cell, this man come up, put his hand on me, and said, why don't you go to church with me tonight? And it was in the Polk County, Florida jail that I got saved. It was the first time in my life that I had Jesus Christ into my life. Now, guys, it was a process for me. I didn't come out with a 3-piece suit and the Bible in my hand. I promise you. Had to do some more time in Tampa. Had to do some time in Tennessee. Actually ended up with another 18 months sentence in Tennessee. Kicked out September 2nd, 2014. Went to a place called True Purpose Ministries, and that's what led me to where I am today. So now, that all being said, I want to introduce my wife, Catherine Dees. And
Really quick, can you throw that before and after picture? I want you to see what my husband looked like.
that was in 2010. That was the day I got arrested. I've been up for a long time. Don't tell me the enemy didn't come to steal, kill, and destroy. That man was in the grave, and God said, Stephen, come out. And when he did, it's what you see over there. Somebody who has life today. Today, I'm an ordained minister. Today, I'm a program director. Today, I got a beautiful wife. Today, I got a beautiful home. Today, I have cars. This man had no, this guy was living death. And everybody who ate from that tree was poisoned too.
So we all know Celebrate Recovery isn't just about chemical dependency, amen? So I have never been chemically dependent unless you talk about food. But I still absolutely relate to everybody that's sitting in this room, because we all know that the chemical dependency is just a physical manifestation of the root cause, correct? It's the wound on the inside that we need to work on, right? So my story is I was born in the Philippines. Anybody been there, know about it, heard about it? 20 years ago when I moved to East Tennessee, they didn't know where the Philippines was. Bless them. Anyways, I came... Right. So I came to America when I was 4. My mother had married my stepfather. And so my first issue was then the abandonment. My biological father was never in my life. So now we come to America, and from the very beginning, I can't even tell you when it started, but there was inappropriate touching. By the time I was 12, my stepfather had taken my virginity and continued to rape me into my teenage years. So I do what every brilliant girl does at 18 years old. She gets married and moves out. So then I start my own family. And what happens when you have 2 broken people that get together? Usually it doesn't work out well, right? So we were able to make that last for about 14 years, and then he ended up having an affair. So my track record with the men in my life was not good. First, my biological father with the abandonment, the abuse with my stepfather, and then now you talk about a husband who betrays me. Amen? So I finally moved to East Tennessee only because I'm from California. Don't hold it against me, please. I'm one of the smart ones that got out. How many of y'all have family members that aren't willing or ready to recover with you, right? Yeah, that was my situation. My mother still wanted to live the facade that we were this happy-go-lucky family, and I needed to heal. I wanted to recover. I didn't want to pass my wounds on to my children, so I just moved 2,500 miles away. I moved to little old Maryville, Tennessee. So and actually your pastor, if you attend this church, I'd been in East Tennessee for 3 years. was struggling to find a home. And I'll be honest, when I left California, my greatest loss, I left my family behind. I brought my children. My greatest loss was my church, because they were my community. So now I'm in East Tennessee for 3 years, and I'm hunting for my new family, my new church family. And your pastor was actually the worship leader at the church I found myself in. Yeah,
Still there
is that
today.
not
Come on,
how,
somebody.
Yeah, God works, right? So anyways, so now I'm attending this church, Rio Revolution, and then there's this group of men that come periodically. They come like every 6 weeks. And I know this is not how it really happened, but in my mind's eye, the way I recall it is that the doors would swing open of the church, and then the heavens would open, and then Steve and Dees would walk in, and there'd be all these other men behind them, but I couldn't tell you nothing about the other men. Do you want me to pause there, babe? Or do I tell them how we met and started dating? Yeah? Okay. So the Lord highlighted him, obviously, right? But our lives didn't cross paths at all, meaning I had no recovery background up until that point. And so I knew nothing about this true purpose he spoke of. I knew nothing about his background, but the Lord kept bringing him to mind. So I was praying for him for almost a year without ever having a conversation, right?
She was stalking me, guys. Come on, somebody.
In my prayers, I was. That's the truth. So anyways, so then we had a singles group at the time, and they would gather and do things together. And so I found out through social media that he was going to be there. And I thought, man, I'm finally going to get to have a conversation with this dude and see what he's about, right? And so I get there, I pull up, and there's Steve and Dees, and he's wearing this cute little backpack. And I'm like, ooh, he cute, right? No, listen. He was there with another girl. The backpack was her kid's. Yeah. So, yeah. No, it gets good. So we go through the corn maze. We were at a corn maze. That was the event, right? We're going through the corn maze, and I legitimately said this. I said, Lord, I'm praying for her because she don't know it, but she's out of here. That's how confident I was that he was going to be my husband, right? So a couple weeks later, he hollers at me and he's like, hey, you want to hang out? And I said, sure. Is that with or without your girlfriend? Because I don't do that, right? We don't do that, right? No matter what the Lord has told us, we don't do that. And so he said, no, she ain't my girl. We were just kind of talking to see what was up. I said, well, you finish that and then holler at me and we see what we could do. So we went out October 29th of 2015, and January 1st of 2016, we were married.
Come on, somebody.
60
Amen.
days, y'all. 60 days.
So, guys, really quick, okay? And we'll give you all, we're going to do a little lesson real quick, okay? Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Can anybody tell me what that is? Okay, your heart is a fist-sized object that pumps 2,000 gallons of blood throughout your body a day, okay? And so there is a condition that your heart can get called hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's called a hardening of the heart, okay? And so after your heart's been exposed to maybe pollution, nicotine, alcohol, drugs, it can become hardened. And so what happens is your heart has to pump really hard to get that 2,000 gallons of blood throughout your body a day. That's a life-giving substance. So now, bending down to tie your shoe gets hard. Getting up in the middle of the night to walk to the refrigerator gets hard. But now you're pumping like this. It's hard to live. You get short breath. Can't go long distances. So there's another word in the Greek called sclerocardia. You'll find in Hebrews 3 when it says that the Israelites couldn't enter into God's rest because of their sclerocardia. The disciples asked Jesus about the divorce. He said, man, I hate divorce, but Moses gave you a writ for divorce because of the sclerocardia, the hardening of your heart. The word cardia in the Greek means feelings and thoughts. So let me ask y'all something. What kind of stuff do you think? Because out of the heart flows what? The issues of life. So if your heart is hardened and the issues flow out of your heart, out of your feelings and thoughts, and your feelings and thoughts have been hardened over time, how hard is it to live? Let me give you an example. Let's start with the abandonment issues. Me and Catt both had abandonment issues when we were younger, okay? So we get into an argument when we first get together. Now listen, I'm a rough dude. I know that. I'm rough around the edges. Catt, man, she ain't never been in an argument where somebody screams and hollers and cusses and threatens and throws things. Never. Until she met me. And our very first argument, man, I ripped her down, son. I did what was normal to me. What I had been modeled, what I thought was normal. Man, it lasted for like 3 weeks, man, off and on. And one day we're standing in the living room and I cannot get this woman to respond. I'm calling her names. I'm threatening her. I'm tearing her down. And she's just looking at me and staring at me like, what's going on? And I was like, okay, I'll get a response. And I walked over and I grabbed a water bottle and I poured it on top of her head. Yeah, I was, man. Why? Because my heart and my feelings have been exposed to some things after a while, and that was normal to me. Learning how to communicate was something I couldn't do unless it was through anger. So my wife looked at me and she cocked her head sideways and she said, man, I need a timeout. I committed 3 felonies right away. I took her keys from her, I took her phone from her, and I wouldn't let her leave. That's a prison sentence. 100%. She had grace and mercy on me after I calmed down and I let her go. She came, I went to my pastor's house. I said, I jacked it up, son. I said, I did it wrong, man. I did everything wrong. I said, I cussed her. I called her names. I did everything I wasn't supposed to do. And he said, well, what happened? I said, well, she told me she needed a timeout. And I was boo-hooing. I wasn't saying it like I am now. I was thinking snot. Because I knew I'd messed something up. He put his arm around me and he prayed with me. And he said, tell me again what she said. I said, she needed a timeout. And he just kind of giggled. He said, call me in the morning. So that night went. Next morning, she's at home, and he was right. Here we were eating breakfast, and everything's good. So I called him up and said, yeah, she came back. She didn't go see a lawyer. We're not going to get divorced. We're going to work it out. And he was like, Stephen, what did she say? Well, she said she just needed a timeout. Now, my heart had been exposed to abandonment when I was younger. I watched my mom get wheeled out by an ambulance. I watched my mom leave by the window. I watched my mom when it came out at the psychiatric hospital what that man had done to me. She said, call it a lie and don't tell them that it's the truth because he's going to go to prison. I know what abandonment looks like. And I knew that if I let her out the door and she was going to go for a timeout, that I wouldn't see her again. Because my feelings and my thoughts, my heart was hardened because it had been exposed to abandonment. Jump ahead a little bit. What about the sexual abuse? The sexual abuse both of us have went through as kids and children. Your heart has been exposed to something no kid should have to go through, right? So what does that do? That warps the way you think. Sex is love. Love is sex. I got to sleep with all the women I can because I got to go ahead and maintain the man that I am. Because something happened to me when I was 13 years old that wasn't my fault. Do you understand what I'm saying? It put perversion in my mind. Pornography became really big in my mind. Does that make sense? And sleeping with other people, I was thinking that was the way that love was sex. Sex was love. That's how we validated each other. Why? Because my heart has been exposed to some things it shouldn't have been exposed to. Having a relationship was hard. Communicating was hard.
True. Because of the background I came from, I didn't come from the lifestyle of addiction. And so when I thought I was honoring him, it was like I was speaking Chinese and he was speaking Russian. There were times I would do things that I felt honored him and he would feel so disrespected. And the way he came at me was very foreign to me. I'd never been spoken to that way. I'd never been treated that way. I didn't understand it at all.
So it's 7:58.
I know. I want to tell you this. For those of you that are married or those of you that want to be married, I think this world has distorted what marriage is about. It's about what that person's going to do for me. They're going to make me feel good. They're going to validate me. They're going to make me feel important. But marriage really is sacrificial, y'all. I'll tell you, it's been the most humbling thing I've ever been through. There's a lot of forgiveness required. Every day you get up and you choose again to forgive. And he said it, forgiveness isn't a feeling, because never did I wake up feeling excited to forgive again. It really is a choice, and being committed to that choice, for sure. And you know, I could stand here and point fingers at my husband, and I did with God a lot. I complained a lot to the Lord, like, really, this is what I have to deal with? I don't get this, Lord. But what the Lord invited me to do was to look in my own mirror, because I wasn't the perfect wife. I didn't know what a biblical wife looked like. It hadn't been modeled for me. And so he was like, stop pointing the fingers at this guy and start looking in your own mirror.
And I really, really appreciate her saying that. But guys, one man up to say, no woman in this world ever deserves to be talked to that no matter what they do. No woman ever deserves to have a hand put on her, regardless of what they do to you. Catt, I appreciate what you said, but we don't ever make an excuse for what we do. We are men. We are the spiritual leaders of our home, and we are responsible for what we do. Period. Okay? So, fast forward for a minute. We go 5 years into this thing. Catt finds herself back in California. Divorce is imminent. I'm alone. My church says no. They tell me not to come back to church because we were in church together. They kind of excluded me out. Don't come back to CR. Lost my CR family. I was working full-time ministry. I was told not to come back to the ministry for 30 days. And for those 30 days, I had to get up every day, and I had to pray, God, take away the pain that I feel today. Please keep me strong so I don't reach out from the world to make myself feel better. Lord, let no man take asunder what God has put together. And I fought for my marriage on my knees for the days that she was gone. And them days, I didn't even know where she was at. They lied to me at first. They said, oh, she ain't with her family. She's getting some help somewhere. I'm like, okay, everything's great. And then no word. Then I start hearing, divorce. Things are going to happen. I was excluded from everybody. Matter of fact, we'll share a little bit. You okay on time? Okay. So.
Just turn the mic off when we're done.
She disappeared. One day we were supposed to meet and go to a meeting, and she disappeared. But when she disappeared, the whole community got in uproar. Her daughter got involved. Her kids in California got involved. This is on a Monday night. We can't find her. All day Tuesday, we can't find her. Wednesday, I'm sitting in my house. The detectives come over, and I thought I was doing a missing persons report. Little did I know that they were thinking that I was responsible for her missing. And then they started having me collect evidence out of my house. I had to put the hairbrush in the evidence bag. I had to put the toothbrush in the evidence bag. They're taking pictures. They're taking blood swabs off these things that was outside. That was caterpillars, thank God. But in the midst of all this, God was still in control. And she showed up on a Thursday. Okay? But she was gone again because on Friday, I lost it up here because I knew they were having a meeting about me at the church. She was invited and I wasn't. And I went off, man, in my mind, thinking that she was supposed to meet me at 7:30, and here it is, 9 o'clock. I don't know where she's at. I come home, and she's packing her stuff in the car. There's 2 police officers there. And I'm going off on the road. I'm hot. I'm mad. I'm screaming. I'm hollering. I'm acting like Stephen Dees, getting ready to go to jail. They're getting ready to tase me. I mean, it's crazy. My pastor calls me up and says, Stephen, you're going to ruin everything God's doing. Get out of town now. Go to Alabama. I got you a place to go. And I took his advice and I left. But when I came back, she was gone. My whole world got turned upside down. And man, I could have been a victim like I've been in the past. And I could have reached out from the world to make myself feel better. What would have normally I done is got vindictive. And I got angry and mad and I'd have burned her stuff or done something stupid. You know what I'm saying? Here we got a home now, which y'all ain't even heard about how we got our home. God was in all of that. It's just crazy. But at the end, we started texting, and I felt some hope. But then she texted me one day, and she said, hey, Stephen, it's Friday. I'm going out with my kids. We're going to church, and I got something to tell you later, but I won't be able to speak to you today. Where do you think my mind went? Oh, man, I was helicoptering out of control. That whole day, I couldn't do nothing that day but pace and pray. I was trying to reach out for God. I was just so like calling her and texting her. She ain't answering. And so I reached out to somebody that night, and I said, this is why you got to be grounded in the Word. I reached out to somebody who was working at Calhoun's on the river, and I said, listen, I need some help tonight. I need to come bounce this off you. I'm going crazy. And he said, come on down. I'll put you at a table. Man, there's some live music down here, man, and things are popping off, and we'll just have dinner together, and on my breaks, we'll minister. I was like, cool, amen. That sounds like ministry. Come on. And so I get ready, and I get on the road before I get off of Keller Highway, and I'm probably about a mile or 2 away from the exit, and my phone goes off, and it was Pastor Jeremy, and I don't know why he texted me, said, have you heard whether or not Catt's coming home? And I got angry, and I said, voice texted no, and I threw the phone on the seat, and it rolled over and hit the floor, and I started to get off that exit, and I heard God's voice just as, I mean, if it wasn't audible, it just ought to be. He said, Stephen, did you make reservations tonight? And I said, what do you mean, God? He said, you're going where there's live music, you're going where there's women, and you're going where there's dope. He said, did you make reservations tonight? And I just started weeping. And I passed the exit up. And I went the long way home. Pulled into my driveway, and I reached down and grabbed my phone, and I missed a call from my wife. And I called her, and she said, hey, I just want to let you know I'm coming home Wednesday. That was the beginning of our healing. But understand that I had to come to a place inside of myself to say, God, help me be the man that she needs in her life. Don't fix her. You understand? When I had to go to the throne room and say, I was guilty for all the things I've done. And I had to be responsible for those things. And God, teach me how to be a good husband. Teach me how to deal with these root issues. And that's the first thing he did. He had me make a list of all the people that ever hurt me in my past, and I had to start praying for them and learning how to forgive them. Because it was hindering me from being the man that she needed in her life. It was hindering me from being the minister that God called me to be. My wife back then could not say I was a spiritual leader of the home. But I guarantee you, she gets in front of Rio Revolution and she could tell everybody up there on that stage, and she has done it, that it is a spiritual leader of our home. I'm not proud of the person that I used to be. But Paul said it the best. And this is what I want to leave you all with. Paul said it the best. He said, I've not yet attained who I am, all the way who I am in Christ. I've not attained all who I want to be, which is I want to be face to face with Jesus. I mean, I want to be everything that Jesus created me to be. But I'm not where I was yesterday. That's what I want to leave you guys out with hope. But there's things in your hearts that you all been exposed to that's causing it hard to live. Relationships are hard. Work is hard. Man, look, I'd walk into a room, there'd be 10 men. I knew 9 of them were speaking bad about me. I just knew that. I can tell you times I got in fights just because it was in my mind. And it wasn't even true. Because my heart had been exposed to some things after a while. Guys, there's freedom for sclerocardia. This is the thing. There is no cure for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. All they can do is give you pills to deal with the symptoms. Right? But for sclerocardia, there is a cure. And it's called forgiveness. It's taking the forgiveness out of your heart, putting Jesus on the throne of it. Because Jesus is synonymous with forgiveness. Because everybody in this room, we all deserve the death sentence at one time or another. But Jesus came to die for us, and he changed our stony heart for a heart of flesh. Thank you for letting us share tonight. Amen.